Good morning and good evening. Welcome to the Friday Study Circle, where we are reading the passages from the book The Sunlit Path. So, spending one last minute just in gathering ourselves, trying to be less scattered and more centered with this beautiful chant and with the focus on our breath. So, good evening again. Let us begin. Yeah. So, last time we had done this passage called To Fall Back into Error, and we had taken it up quite extensively and intimately. And today we will be taking up the passage Strengthen the Will. In case I'm erring, Captain would know and he'll stop me. But if not, we can.
You're right, madam.
Thank you, Captain.
Begin.
Yeah, so whoever is willing, they may kindly read the passage for us.
Yeah, I can read it now.
Okay, thank you, Jagan.
Strengthen the will. Mother, how can one strengthen one's will? Oh, as one strengthens muscles by a methodical exercise. You take one little thing, something you want to do or don't want to do. Begin with a small thing, not something very essential to the being, but a small detail. And then, if, for instance, it is something you are in the habit of doing, you insist on it with the same regularity. You see, either not to do it or to do it. You insist on it and compel yourself to do it as you compel yourself to lift a weight. It is the same thing. You make the same kind of effort, but it is more of an inner effort. And after having taken little things like this, things relatively easy, you know, after taking these and succeeding with them, you can unite with a greater force and try a more complicated exercise experiment. And gradually, if you do this regularly, you will end up acquiring an independent and strong will. Ma'am, can I request to read this again, please? Okay. Question, Mother, how can one strengthen one's will? Oh, as one strengthens muscles by a methodical exercise. You take one little thing, something you want to do or don't want to do. Begin with a small thing, not something very essential to the being, but a small detail. And then, if, for instance, it is something you are in the habit of doing, you insist on it with the same regularity. You see, either not to do it or to do it. You insist on it and compel yourself to do it as you compel yourself to lift a weight. It's the same thing. You make the same kind of effort, but it is more of an inner effort. And after having taken little things like this, things relatively easy, after taking these and succeeding with them, you can unite with a greater force and try a more complicated experiment. And gradually, if you do this regularly, you will end up by acquiring an independent and very strong will. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Will, we do know how we define will in a regular day to day. The will towards something, and the goal could be anything. And we all do know that, we get a lot of ideas, we get a lot of pushings, pokings, small goals, things that we want to do. So those are numerous. And yet, when it comes to doing, a lot of time the action, is not reflecting the words I speak or the thoughts that I have, that I'll do this, I must do this. So if we are vigilant, if we are honest, we do see that our will can be strengthened. I mean, it needs to be strengthened. We all have few instances when we could really see things through. I willed it and everything was dedicated, directed towards it, and it happened. And yet, that is not our norm. Those are few things that we have done in our life that are the highlights of our stories usually. And yet, everything, every good will, every higher will that I do has the potential of reaching that state, at that stage, that yes, that too is done, I could see things through. So the question is, how can one strengthen one's will? So before we take it up line by line, anything by anyone?
Ma'am, can you? Yes, Captain, please go ahead.
Okay. In my case, uh, I try to decide fast actually what I want to do, and taking the pros and cons, and the positive side of it and negative side of it, and then instead of making a plan, like we say that every New Year's come, then on that on the eve of that party, normally we say that okay, the New Year's resolutions, my resolutions are this 1, 2, 3, 4. But I have seen that in my case, it was not becoming practical. So what I tried doing is not to make any resolution. If I have to do something, means you start immediately, and then I see that yes, with the determination that yes, this can be done. Similarly for the will, once I decided that yes, I'll do it, and then automatically the help comes from the other side. That was the thought which was coming to my mind. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Captain. Even, in the prayers and meditation session on Tuesday, I think Jishnu ji and Monica were referring to, some things very said very strongly by the mother. And one of those things was that if you have been told, if you now know what needs to be done, if you have received it, then begin immediately, like exactly what you were saying. Because if we sit with it, I have seen with myself that if I decide something needs to be done, I'll be like, yes, from tomorrow. And that gives me such a high that, I know that from tomorrow I'll do it because I know tomorrow is not today. And it's very strong. And yet, when tomorrow comes, a lot of time it doesn't happen. Sometimes it happens. But I see that when you let time come between what you want to do and where you are, a lot of movements, a lot of things come in between. And I've seen some people who, when they decide something or something is being discussed, that this needs to be done, they just start right away. It appears really powerful and magical, and yet they are able to. And because of one of the reasons, I'm sure it must be that they're able to really get into things and do the things that they aspire much faster, and they're able to fall through because that time in which you can go here and there is not allowed to happen. Yeah, thank you, Captain.
So, I think Jagan wanted to say something. I'll say it after.
Okay. Yeah, Jagan.
Um, Actually, you can go ahead, Mira. Thank you. I'll ask him a little later. Thanks.
Okay. So, what I was going to say is what I've observed many times is that, let's say in food, right, especially when you're trying to control to not eat something, and there is a health issue that is there, that I know that if I eat something, it's going to worsen up and I might land up in a bigger trouble. So there was a period like a week or two where I knew that there were certain allergic reactions and I was supposed to avoid certain foods. So at that time, because of this fear or whatever, this big thing that is hanging over my head, that if I do this, I will certainly land up in that situation. The will was so strong, so I didn't have to put any extra effort, and like I absolutely didn't touch it. But if that wasn't there, I often ask myself whether I would have done the same thing. Like I knew that this is not good for me, but I can't see it in front of my eyes. It's not like tomorrow morning I'm going to fall sick, but eventually over the year something may or may not happen. And I don't know if the will would be the same. Like that's often, I mean, I ask myself that.
Yeah, yeah, very, yeah. I remember in one of the sessions, Jetsunmala, somebody asked her, okay, I want to really get up, Jetsunmala, at 4 a.m. and I want to do my practice and I'm always late, what to do? So she said that, of course, there's something that is missing, right? So, say, what if I would tell you that if you don't get up at 4 a.m. from tomorrow, you will die? You'll die that day. Do you think it's possible that you don't wake up at 4 a.m.? She said no. So, this, we don't take things, no, we know things and yet we ignore them, right? Like we say, okay, this does not suit me, so thoda sa de dena. I see myself saying that too. And this is how we kind of cut corners and walk around things. But we don't realize, what is the importance of things. We have an idea, we do see it, and yet we don't fully believe it. And like you said, that it is true that unless there is something really hanging somewhere, and yet, there are some people who I have known who could not even do it then. Like I had a cousin, like some cousin's father or somebody who had very severe diabetes, and he was told that, if you eat sweet, you'll have to put an insulin injection right then. And it's really harmful for you, the level you have. And he said that it's impossible for me not to eat it. So he would eat and then put, he would eat and then, just put, and it looked pretty sad. Okay, what is he doing? And then he just He got, diabetic blindness and everything, and he was okay, but he couldn't stop eating. So that is also, and this I'm saying from a step back, like I don't know intimately what was happening. This is what appeared to me or I heard, but even by such things that if this happens, it will be harmful for me. Not everybody still has that will or that, I don't know, basic intelligence or wisdom or the grace to stop even then. So even if we can do it then, just wanted to point out we must be grateful. And of course, we know that, there's a lot more progress and capability that I have. Yeah.
I also wanted to share, Didi, uh, that like suppose if I make a will that I will get up from tomorrow and do this. Okay. Um, Immediately there is a fear, like a fear of doubt, like a fear and a fear of failure that what if I'm not able to do it? Like, and somehow it is that fear that pulls me down, that puts me in uh, that state of disbelief in myself that this can happen, like there is this, and somehow then I create that, like even if suppose if I have to get up tomorrow at 4 a.m. and I have to do this assignment, I have to work on this assignment, so I will immediately have this fear and that list of doubt thoughts that what if I'm not able to do it, if I'm not able to complete it, etc. So tomorrow, even if I will definitely get up at 4 because that is in my hand, like somehow like that the will works, but the main work that I have to do, that is a lot depends on what inspiration I get, etc., whether I feel the flow and all the other things. So there I will somehow, by my doubt and fear, create so much of this thing that even if I'm like sitting for 2 hours and sincerely doing it, it is still not done. And just because I have so much doubt and fear in my own head that it will not be done, and that somewhere it's also that doubt of perfection that like I somehow want my work to be done perfectly, and I can't tolerate imperfection from my own self. So wo, matlab, I think maybe it's coming from there, but it is a lot like that. And this especially like happens when suppose if I have 2 days before submitting an assignment. So then if I do this for then if I mark this will that I will do it, it will not get completed. But suppose it is actually the last day and like 6:30 it has to go to print, somehow at 6 o'clock it will finish, like the factors will align and it will finish. So it is also like like it will always get done at the last minute, no matter 3 days of discipline I have of waking up doing everything that it needs, but somehow the inner alignment will not happen till the last minute. So I get very frustrated with myself, like what is this, because then yeah, so like, and and that kind of a pattern of will then is also in other things in life, like a similar pattern happens with all the other things I want to do, because I experience a failure here, so the other things also I start laxing, and i I don't know what to do about it.
It's really interesting how, the way you are saying it appears that that's a pattern for you, right? That every time it happens, that this is how it happens, कि by the end only, suddenly things align. So maybe you could experiment not even wanting to do it before, see if that helps. कि just when you actually feel it needs to, I mean, you realize कि अब तो बस deadline, it feels, it's called a deadline driven kind of a scenario. A lot of us have that unless there's a deadline, unless, how again it's a bit consistent with what Meera was sharing, right? That unless there's any high stakes, I don't follow through, or I follow through much better when the stakes are high. So, and now, when you're talking about perfection, I mean, if you have more time, things would be more perfected, right? And now that you can see it and say it more clearly, and you know this about yourself, like giving yourself, if possible, personal deadlines, कि by this time I have to finish it, forget the summit thing. But yeah, I don't have an answer. It's an interesting thing to be able to see it, and yet, there's a gap, one can offer it. But this fear that you were talking about, I think at least that can be offered. That fear of what? Now that you know that any time you felt it would not be done, every time it has been done, right? You said कि every time, just before I have to submit, I do it. So the fear one can maybe sit with and offer that I don't need to have that. Maybe that is what is blocking you.
Yes, I also seem to resonate with that because what happens is that perfection thing, like before the last minute, I keep thinking what I'm doing is imperfect. Like I keep working on it. But everything seems to me imperfect, and I keep correcting it, and I work more from the mind. But at the last minute, like just I allow things to flow. Like I let the mind stop, and I let the higher force come कि अब तुम्हारे पास की नहीं है तो but somehow that uh, what I'm but somehow that yeah, that complete trust and that fear that has to, like, that complete trust, that shift from fear to complete trust, if it can come in the first moment, then it will, like, then it can be so much more joyful, like life can be so much more.
Yeah.
and
But
and then that same pattern, yes, in the small small things also, like if I want to get up at this time and eat this food, I will follow that discipline. All those things, there is a certain thought of failure, that I won't be able to do it, or it won't happen that well, so that postponement of it. But the postponement is not so much of inertia, more of failure, like it won't, like I, yeah, some failure kind of a thing,
yeah, Chetna,
which is
how do
like,
you define
yeah,
failure? Can you define it for me?
yeah, like maybe like I will do it for 2 days and then it won't happen. And I don't know, it's a very weird thought of failure because it's uh, like I won't be able to do it.
And what will
Yeah,
happen
it's,
if there's so many things that you have been wanting to do in your life that we all have. Some we are able to do, some we are not able to do. So even if we were not able to do certain things, what happened? Nothing. There were other things that you were able to do. So how's this thought that I am not able to do it, or I would not be able to do it? How is it helping? It doesn't seem to be playing a purpose other than kind of just giving you some stress and anxiety and fear, you know?
yeah.
So I think yes, इसको you can sit with it like next time that you have such an assignment or in general कि नहीं हुआ तो क्या, right? तो क्या? What is it? Nothing. कि is it worth losing my peace and my basic equilibrium and going into fear? You can question yourself and then you can choose not to follow that dictate, that thought that is coming कि हाँ नहीं हुआ तो कोई बात नहीं, कुछ और होगा.
Hmm. just last thing, the very weird thing with me is that I'm able to the physical discipline. I'm able to follow a physical discipline. Like if I want to get up at the 4 o'clock, I can put that alarm and I will wake up at easily. But just I have fear of certain activities, like, and I don't give myself too much. I can do what I genuinely know I can do, but I have fear of certain activities like exercise. I want to get up at 4 and say I want to do exercise. Now I have that fear of that activity, like वो मैं नहीं कर पाऊंगी शायद. I don't, and to think of it logically, it's such a simple activity कि उसमें क्या है जो नहीं कर.
Yeah, Chetna, I can't hear you. I think your voice is cracking. So some connection issue. Yeah, Deepa, please.
So, yeah, I understand what Chetna is saying, because I think when I used to have to write clinical reports for the children that used to come, I would push it till the last minute of the date of report submission, get up at 3 a.m., even if I have the whole day free, because then my day starts at 6 a.m. And then in that 3 hours, I would try to somehow finish the report. So, so what this is called as, obviously, procrastination. We put things off, and actually the deep-seated reason for this is anxiety. That anxiety of that performance task. So whether it is, so I'm judged, right, on the basis of my report. So there is a certain level of anxiety there, or there is the anxiety that, my skills are totally coming into question now as a therapist. Or as Chetna said, that, it could be you're worried about how you will do in that exercise class. Like, it's tiring and you're pushing yourself through those challenges. You're fearful of those challenges, of that, physical endurance that is going to be pushed, the stamina, the fatigue, the tiredness. And I think a lot of times this anxiety is because we are so focused on the end, the result. And we don't enjoy the process. I never thought of writing a report as a culmination of my work, or as something that is, my skills are put to use. I'm not enjoying my work, maybe the work of doing the report. And if we realize that we are putting things off due to anxiety, if we first acknowledge that, okay, there is anxiety related to this task, then if we realize that it is not about the process, it is about the end result, we acknowledge that as well. I think it is a little more easier to make an action plan. And I think the only way it worked for me was I made another deadline much before the deadline. But I think there has to be something more transformational, frankly. And I think, Taru, maybe you can describe more about what transformation is required in this. I just know the root cause of it, which is anxiety and the fact that we're so focused on the end result. Yeah, but there has to be a way that we overcome this.
Something that was coming to me, some instances from my own life when I would not want to do things. I would say 10 out of 10 times, it was, no, 9 out of 10 times, it was something that I wasn't interested in doing. It was something that I felt was not really needed, but I was made to do it because that's the protocol. So, a lot of things the being repulses and rejects, and we fight against it because ये तो करना ही है, ये तो करना ही है, right? Like, I remember, in my child's school, again, they would give very beautiful, they don't have report cards. They didn't have reports card back in India when he was in Shikshantar. but they would have beautiful observations of the teachers. Okay, this is it, he's doing this is a new thing he's doing. And it felt that, hours must have been spent on observation for them to give those writings and stuff. But during COVID, when the thing shifted to online, when I know so much more than the teacher, because the child is sitting in front of me from the last year and doing what he is doing, and still the teachers were expected to write those reports, which I felt were very, like, it didn't serve any purpose. And I felt so sorry for the teachers that how we cannot adapt that easily, right? जो चीजें जो बोली गई हैं, from top down, you still do it. So just one example that we should also question if we are getting so much, kind of this repulsion thing, that is it something that is aligning with what I want to do, or if I feel this is not necessary and if I still have to do it, then obviously repulsion to aayegi. If there's a small child and if he doesn't want to paint, no matter what you do, he would not paint. And if he wants to paint, no matter what you say, he'll paint. कि नहीं, मुझे तो करना ही है, because he feels strongly about it. And I think anxiety, fear, yes, when we hear these things, one thing is because we are in the situation and we are overpowered by them. But when we are not in the situation and we see this repeated pattern, we can sit with ourselves and ask, right? क्या है, क्या? What is the stake? Why is the stake so high? और अगर परफेक्शन चाहिए तो कितनी और अच्छी चीजों में भी चाहिए हो सकती है, इससे क्या मिलेगा, राइट? बट फिर वहां पे हमारे और ग्रीड्स होते हैं दैट people should acknowledge me, somebody should say you did a great job. So many things are added on this which are not really adding value, but I'm addicted to that praise, to that beautiful acknowledgement that I would get. Maybe for some people even the promotions could be dependent on it. So because if we are selling something, including our services and ourselves, and then we have to do things which go against us, then that is something we are doing willingly. So फिर तो it's a trade and one can do it, but one doesn't need to do it. We can choose, we can pick, we can select, and we can laugh sometimes, especially when we are not in the situation, when we are sitting with it. What kind of anxieties am I holding on to? What is it giving me? What praises am I looking for? Is my thing, like you were sharing, that is it not enough? I'm doing it for my joy. I would want to do this for this child, or something like this. So that focus needs to shift, that doing this is the reward and not the reward that I'll get of the acknowledgement. Because yeah, one would have those cold feet if the stakes one feels are too high, but one must question, are they that high? Are they high, or are there even any stakes? Or am I just putting things, in my illusionary thing and making things bigger than they are? तो इसमें थोड़ा सा ये भी समझ आता है कि because we don't have higher things, the things that we have, we make them big. And that quote, that we shared in the Harmony Circle recently, I don't know, I think it was from Khalil Gibran, where he said that my longing for the greatness makes me great, like my longing for my giant self, I think that was the word. Just give me 1 second, I'll pull it. So it says, yeah, it's Khalil Gibran, in your longing for your giant self lies your goodness. What am I anxious for? किस चीज की टेंशन है मुझे? अगर एक प्रोजेक्ट की है, एक रिपोर्ट की है, I can smile at it, that okay, the body has certain, patterns, certain fears, certain trends, but I can see them now and they can lessen and lessen. If I see and I'm laughing that, oh, you are here again. Hello. कि जरूरत नहीं है आपकी, and yet it takes time for me to move a little bit here. And like we were discussing in another session, right, at how, say, using some alternative, right? Like, okay, you are still doing what you're doing, but now you have, say, doing chanting with it. So that energy which was going into fear and dread and whatever anxiety now is directed toward, okay, I just do this, and meanwhile the hands are doing what they need to do. तो जो प्राणा है, जो एनर्जी है, वो कहीं लगा दी और माइंड और बॉडी आर वर्किंग फॉर इट. बट हैविंग सेड दैट, these are good indicators to question what one is doing. And if it turns out you still want to do it, then obviously sitting with it and letting go of the anxiety and fear, because as we see, it's nothing that they are giving us, it's everything that they are taking us, from us, increasing the stake of things, dramatizations, and all that. But if, like, and it's so nice if one can see it, because it dikta hi nahi hai. But to be able to see it, now we can look into it more and get to the root of it if we want to let go.
When Chetana was sharing her experience, it felt like it's also the story of my life, or at least how the story of my life used to be. And um, it always happened that at the nick of the moment, I would shift myself into the top gear and kind of push myself. And I've had this habit of staying awake for 40 hours at a stretch, and that kind of gave me this boost. Ki, I don't care. I can wake, I can stay awake and do the stuff and all that. But Chetana, I actually asked a similar question to Taru ma'am a few months ago, maybe in the beginning. And um, one thing I've learned is that, and I'm still learning, is that more than anything, it is very important to be kind to yourself. Or if I'm talking about myself, then it's very important that I'm being kind to myself. Because every day before I go to sleep, I want to wake up at 4, every day. Some days I want to go for a run at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, but it doesn't happen. It really, I've been inconsistency has been such a thing that it doesn't always happen. But again, these little things, by grace, we are able to see, that, I'm not able to do it, but also to understand that this is not me, this is not permanent. I've been doing this for the last 20 years or whatever that, but that is not me. That is not a habit that will stay with me until my last breath. It is something I can change. So believing in that, because um, I've seen a lot of them in my own family, where I said, I was told that, this is how I am and this is how I'm going to be. You don't tell me anything. And they just stayed like that. They just stayed like that, and it was sad. It was just sad. So if it's coming to me, then I can tell myself that, okay, I've repeated this for whatever 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 years, but again, right now I can still change. And I will tell you this, that even as I'm talking, I have stuff at my hand. I could have finished last Wednesday. I'm still on it, and my deadline is on Monday. And again, the thing is, I'm still in my old patterns. I'm not saying I've changed entirely. It doesn't work like that. But the thing is, I can be more kind to myself. If I'm not able to wake up, I can say, okay, आज नहीं कल कर लूंगा, आज नहीं कल कर लूंगा. And I think at one point it just happens. I'm just waiting for that time too. Um, and also the perfection thing you said, na. Um, I used to be this, whenever I used to do a thing, or whenever I do a thing, even today, there is this urge to kind of perfect it. This is this kind of, and somebody, I don't know if in a meeting or someone, they said ki there is an ego also in perfection. And I was kind of taken aback. I said, how is there an ego in perfection? You know, a perfectionist, because I want to make it look good. But then I sort of sat, or I think I went for a drive maybe, and I started thinking, if nobody was to come see my work, especially in my previous experiences, I wouldn't really bother much about the perfection. if I'm writing something, if I'm cleaning my room, if I'm, working out, I find that only a certain portion of me is really wanting that perfection, but a majority of it is wanting approval, you know. And to be honest, it's such a hard feeling for me, because right now I'm at a point where I'm asking, okay, what should I really do then? I like to take photographs of animals and all that. And even in that also, I don't know, somehow I find that, okay, I need approval for this. I need approval for that. Even I'm being kind to someone. Even when I say that I'm being kind to you, again, let's say he slaps me, will I still be kind to him? I wouldn't. So there is that kindness in me. So that's just a transaction for me. So again, so having said all this, so yeah, that's all I wanted to share. That um, I'm in my own journey of finding um, that point where I don't really need approval. The only approval I need is of myself. And again, being kind and all that. And Tarun, I have a question I wanted to ask in the beginning. Just wanted to kind of construct my words. In that paragraph, there was. Can you open it, please? Begin with a small thing, not something very essential to the being. Now, ma'am, when I talk about the ego of perfection, or being unkind to myself, or not being consistent and all that, these to me appear very clear somehow. To me, they appear clear in myself. But there are very little things, very little subtle things that I do that I don't observe. For example, I was pointed out on how uh, um, I don't know, like, very, very like bad habit, like little habits, like um, I wouldn't, I wouldn't fold my sheets after I wake up. Or I do that, but again, that's just an example of these very small things that I think is okay. That's, I'm doing so much. Why should I even bother about these little things? And I kind of ignore them. So how do I observe these little things, which if I can, start to make changes, that will sort of, follow through and impact a bit more than, yeah.
या जगन इसमें थोड़ा सा फनी लग रहा है मुझे बिकॉज यू से हाउ डू आई correct the things that don't bother me, that are there, that are little, that I feel are not of much consequence. When I have 10 things that I know I must change, I must work on, why do I need to even bother about the things I don't see right now, right? Like they will be shown to me. So, right now, do you see, instead of doing what I can do, the mind is tricking me that, this you will do because you can see, but what about the things you can't see? So, then the answer
Mm.
is I will work on them when I see them, because right now I'm not sitting idle, right? I have a lot of
Yeah,
work to do. So
yeah,
let me begin with what I can see, and I have already begun. So let me
yeah,
just put more effort into it.
yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
If I can add to what Chetna had said, it just came up to my mind that recently there was this group that had started cycling around my area, and the ladies were asking if anybody's interested, and I obviously was interested in getting back to cycling. Um, so the day before the cycling, I was literally so nervous, even though this is an activity I really wanted to do, but it's been years since I started cycling. Um, so anyways, I mean, I went and I did it, I liked it, and yet I was nervous about, how behind I was compared to the other participants. So the second session, when the cycling happened again, and I actually questioned myself, similar to what Taru said, that I asked myself, do I really want to do this, or am I just doing it because there is this whole peer pressure of, ladies are doing it together? And I asked this question to myself because my anxiety was like through the roof, about going back again. What if I fall? What if I slip? What if I, show how clumsy I am? And all of those kind of doubts started coming to my mind. So I asked myself, do I want to do cycling? And the question came clear. I really wanted to do this. I was just not sure whether I was up to it, So then how do you deal with this anxiety? So what I did was I just removed my cycle, I cleaned up, I kept everything ready. You kind of prepare yourself. If this is what I want to do, then I need to have that confidence, self-belief. And though I'm not a big devotee of, I'm new to this group, to the concept of, to the image of mother and everything. I just thought I will try it. And I said, mother is going to save me if I have a fall. She will make sure that I don't get hurt. Or maybe she will just not make me fall and she'll support my cycle and she'll make me go through. And and believe me, that time, that transformation that happened within me, the confidence, whether it is me or no, the more than the self-confidence, the feeling of protection that somebody is going to take care of me. If this is what I want to do, she will help me through. And then I just kept things ready. I didn't postpone it to the last minute. So in a way, sometimes when you're so anxious, you put those things away, even the prep tasks. I did all the prep tasks, the first thing that I could, when I had the pocket of time to do it. I did that. I felt a little better because I at least cleared off all the backlog that is supposed to do before the task. And then I just offered myself to the divine that they will take care of me. Well, I was the last among the women to reach the post while cycling, but I did it. And the fact that, I did the preparation the first thing in the morning. It kind of removed so much anxiety. The second that I offered myself to the divine, that made me calm. And the third, the self-belief after the task that, okay, I did it. I mean, I don't care what others think that I'm the slowest in the group, but, I did it. So I think the judgments throw away. It's not required. What others think, whether I'm fast enough or no, how does it matter? For me, it was important to cycle, not to come first. So I think that level of perfection, I just threw it in the bin. And I focused on the task that I wanted to do, not about, the outcome of where I stood among the group, and the people were kind. So it really wasn't that they were being judgmental or something, okay, I'm slowing the group or anything. I might have slowed, but nobody really voiced it out, and they were very supportive. So maybe one way of looking at it.
Yes. Deepa and Jagan. That helps a lot. I just want to share very briefly this thing, talking about will and exercising the will and choosing a small task. So it's basically been, my will to start exercising. And I just have to get up at
Yeah,
5
Chetna, your
and
voice is
start in my
breaking
home.
pretty badly. Can you do something? Can you
Oh,
change your
okay,
mic or something?
it's like this. But I think, I shared my point and I got the answers as well.
So this came perfectly.
I'm
Yeah.
just sharing that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, I'm just sharing that like your questioning me made me really reflect. What am I even scared of? Like, what is the uh, yeah, that is something that question and that stays with me to reflect on. Yes, and thank you for the sharing.
Yeah, great.
Helps.
Thank you, Chetna. Deepa, on your sharing, it's really funny that, say, if I was a senior cyclist, if there's something called like this, and there was somebody new who would join, and I can see that, this is the first day, they are struggling, I would reach out, right? I would smile, I would be encouraging. So I would do that. And yet, when I am the one on the opposite side, I fear that, oh, I'm doing this, I'm slowing people down, right? Like, I think if somebody is so serious about cycling and those goals and aims, they would not even join groups. They would just go by themselves and do what they had to. They are here because there is a fun element to it. There's a companionship. There's a thing of doing it together. And every time in a group, there's somebody ahead and there's somebody who's not there yet. And we know that, right? So if I am present in a group activity, that's the basis that I actually like. That's why I'm there. So I think this thing about what if I'm slowing down or what will others think? I think I can totally let that go because वो अपने लिए responsible है, right? If they will probably, if they are frustrated, they would not join the group. They have the choice to do it alone. So remembering, I think for me, for anything serious or unserious, reminding myself, why am I doing it? Why am I doing it? Why am I doing it? Really helps me in the focus that I need to have, right? Like if it's for fun and if I'm getting serious, I can course correct, right? कि but मैं कर क्यों रही हूँ? Like you said, you asked yourself, right? Do you really want to do it? And why do I want to do it? Because it's fun, it's joyous, it feels really good when you cycle actually. तो वो एक अलग हो जाता है. But if I'm stressing for something that I'm doing for fun, then somehow it's not serving the purpose, है ना? So that is the reason we end up, it's like we plan a perfect vacation and we are stressing so much कि अरे ये तो perfect हो ही नहीं रही, ये तो perfect हो ही नहीं रही, that we end up not enjoying the vacation, and that's really sad, right? So these images, these notions, these expectations, maybe it's time now, now that we have seen these things closely, that I can move on. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. And when you were sharing, I remember I was going through something a bit scary, which was like I was feeling very anxious about, and I'd shared it, I think, in the harmony circle. So the next day was a circle of harmony, and this came to me then. And now every time I find myself in a situation which I feel see fear creeping in, these are the lines that I go to, and they really help me. So I thought I'll share that. So, yeah, would anybody like to read this? Otherwise, I can read it, or we can just leave it here for a minute.
I'll read it. Yeah, I think I need to read this. I don't have faith in me, but I do have faith in you. In my life of pretend and lies, you are my only truth. When it comes to me, I fear. I stumble from here to there. When I connect with you inside me, I feel light and without a care. I keep deflecting from my center, the home where you reside. You don't look at my indiscretions. You just smile, embrace, and guide. I aspire I would stick to the center. I pray that I never again drift away. You are the beginning and the end. You are the goal and you are the way.
Yeah, thank you. So just even the first two lines, I don't have faith in thee, but I do have faith in you. So that could be the universe, that could be the cosmos, that could be the divine, that could be a specific, divine for some people. So whoever we have faith in, or just in general a higher power, that I do have the faith that the higher things are in play, and then फिर क्या डरना, right? So it suddenly just shifts the dimensions in which you operate. And I think there's this, I don't remember, I can look it up. There's a quote from Rumi, right? That maybe fear is the cheapest room in the house. I pray that you live in better conditions, right? Like something like this. So this anxiety, this fear, it's really unnecessary and just comes to टक 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 पोक just to see कि कुछ मेरे में हिल जाए, कुछ चीज में अट्रैक्ट होके फिर से रोने बैठ जाऊं या स्ट्रेस ले लूं. But it can really, really, really be now for different situations. We feel that एक बार transcend कर दिया तो now it will be there. It doesn't happen. I have to keep inviting light and stand up to fear in small everyday movements. till one day it would realize that, I'm not entertaining him enough and he can maybe not waste his time around me, something like this. So till then, I have to, do it. Yeah, Captain and Sardaji, in case any reflections on this before we take up the passage now, line by line, before we end?
Yeah, Taru, actually, I posted a question to you.
Oh, you
So, when Jagan was, telling something, so I was remembering how to be kind to oneself, because if somebody else does a mistake, I'll be able to forgive them. But if I do the same, I will not be able to easily forgive myself. It will take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Even while speaking, if I make a mistake, I used to feel very bad. Why did I use that word? I could have spoken better. You know, so can you give me some tips for, forgiving myself?
Yeah, no, before even the tips, the question is, what is my relationship with myself?
Hmm.
Okay, what is the role? Like I say, see, if we have a child, right? So if there is Meera, we know that, okay, what all duties, responsibilities, relation I want with Meera, है ना? So then I have to ask myself, what is my relationship with myself? Am I there to help me, to, nudge me forward, to help me forward, or am I the strict teacher who's just always willing to say, okay, get out of the class and stand, you have done a wrong thing? So I think सबसे पहले one has to look at the relation I want to have with me, and how these we talk about the inner child healings and stuff. So there is a small me that is living in me, right? Like that they say, we can say the little Sharda, the child who has had issues, traumas, who has seen experiences. She needs a lot of love. If we recognize her in ourselves, that there is something in me which is scared, which wants to be loved. So if you have a child who's scared and you want to be loved, will you be trashing her or will you be motivating her? So then I think something comes. And for me, I would also, I was very self-critical. कि क्या होगा, कुछ बस का ही नहीं है type, you're not good for much and stuff. But after the NDE, the near-death experience, when I saw the body, when I wasn't the body and I saw it, and then how, it was like I couldn't move, and how slowly the things came back, the sensations and the strength to walk, to stand and stuff, although it was very fast for me, by Mother's grace. Suddenly, the thing that I was taking for granted, this me, I could not take for granted anymore. Like it felt like a blessing that has been given to me. And what do I do with the prasad? Do I throw it? Do I get angry at it? How do I handle a blessing, right? With love, with devotion, with, are kal kar lenge, right? Like that's how we do it. So I think one can sit with oneself, question the relation one wants to have. Let's forget and forgive ourselves for the relation we have been having with ourselves, because that's yesterday, right? That's the past. But now let me see what relation do I want to have with myself and have it then. तो फिर वो kindness ही kindness है, because I am a kind person. I would not want to be unkind, right? To a person, I don't know, be on the street, I am kind. But when it comes to me, I am unkind. What kind of a life is this? So, how we say that if you would not want to be with yourself, right? We say about loneliness or aloneness. The same thing, if I'm not being kind to myself, is it not my being kind to others kind of a fake thing? Because charity always begins at home.
Yeah, beautiful.
There was this thing, I cannot forget it. There was somebody who was talking about the Dalai Lama, and there was a Western person who had come and he was talking about self-hatred. You know how in Westerners at times there is this thing very strong, and Dalai Lama could not understand. What are you talking about, right? Like it was such a strange concept for him that how could somebody, like hate oneself or not be in, not acknowledge and be blessed about oneself, that it took him a while to understand, oh, this also happens. And then when he understood, he spoke on it. But imagine the state of somebody who cannot fathom कि ये कैसे हो सकता है? How is that even possible? So we have to become that, कि how is it possible that somebody can be unkind to their own self? This is a temporary body, temporary mind, temporary personality that has been given to me. And, it's like a temple. And think about cleanliness, right? I think about duty, responsibility. But what is bigger than love and kindness? So I must incorporate those as well and give it a lot of priority, because the other things, they come naturally to me now because of the society, the way things have been done. But these things I must make a priority. That, I say this a lot, that there's this movie of Kareena Kapoor, Jab We Met, where she says, मैं अपनी favorite हूँ. So there is an element of that we must be in touch with. कि I'm standing with me, by my side, defending myself, loving myself, caring for myself. I am with myself. And then one would not feel lonely, one would have aloneness, and one would feel the strength within. But when I keep hitting myself, thrashing myself with words, with feelings, with unworthiness, right? Like then I am kind of weakening my own stance.
Beautiful. Thank you, Taru.
Thank you, Shanta.
Definitely. Beautiful.
It's already 11, so we'll now just take this. It's a small passage, but I think we need to read a lot on will, and there are few passages I was saying that it will be on will. We'll take it up in more details, but let's go through the lines. So we know the question is, how can one strengthen one's will? And Mother is saying, as one strengthen anything, right? So, as one strengthens muscles by a methodical exercise, you take one little thing, something you want to do or don't want to do, right? This is very clear that, okay, I have been wanting to give this up or to start this activity. So Mother is saying start small, because when we start the weight training and everything, we always start small and then we increase the weight. Begin with a small thing, not something very essential to the being. So the stakes has to be less when we are starting with this thing, so that we can develop the muscle. If I don't know it yet, if it's weak, let's begin with smaller things and we can start working on them. And then if, for instance, it is something you are in the habit of doing, you insist on it with the same regularity. You see either not to do it or do it. Whatever you have decided, you follow through it with some regularity. That there is no if and but then. Like if one is developing one's will, this has to be done. This has to be done. And if, say, for some areas, some places, sometimes one is not able to, not like we were talking about trashing ourselves, but further motivating. Oh, today I didn't do it. Oh, my body must be tired, but tomorrow let me sleep an hour earlier and encourage myself to be there. So you insist on it and compel yourself to do it as you compel yourself to lift the weight. It is the same thing. You make the same kind of effort, but it is more of an inner effort. For example, say I'm wanting to feel angry and I know I don't want to get angry, right? So how, when I'm trying to stop myself, can I don't want to go there. So that inner effort, this is the effort which is the real effort. ये बाहर के efforts तो बहुत sidey होते हैं, but we need those to develop the inner effort, to stand against your habits, your likings, your preferences, for the truth, for something which is for your welfare, which is good for you. A lot of effort is needed. So you make the same kind of effort, but it is more of an inner effort. And after having taken little things like this, things relatively easy, after taking these and succeeding with them, you can unite with a greater force and try a more complicated experiment. When we do it, when we do things that we are really into and we want to step back, and when we are able to do it, there's so much joy and strength that comes when you are able to achieve something like that, that it really paves the way to much greater things. There's something in you which says, "Ha, I can do it. See, I was able to do that." So that really helps. I think there's Buddha saying there's, I don't know, 1,000 times more joy in one desire transcended than 1,000 desires met. Something like this. I'm not saying it right, but just the essence of it. That to stand, against oneself and stop or do something which one doesn't feel comfortable doing, but when one knows that is right for you. So I think this is very important, that after taking these and succeeding with them, you can unite with a greater force and try a more complicated experiment. So it's like, say, if I am used to getting up at 9 a.m., I would not say, let me get up at 4 a.m. and then trash myself. Say, what's wrong with you? Why don't you get up at 4? So if it's 9, maybe we can make it 8:30, maybe 8, maybe, something more doable, and move in smaller steps. And gradually, if you do this regularly, you will end up by acquiring an independent and very strong will. So then your vital, your laziness, your comforts, when they know, acha, now he doesn't listen to me, now she or he is not my slave anymore, then the will gets a greater chance, it strengthens and strengthens. So it's a beautiful thing to do and experience. And if we have done it, we must, go back to it and find strength in it. There was this very beautiful video of Acharya Prashant from a very long time back. If I can find it, I'll share it. The title was that, हारेंगे हम बार बार, but कोई हार आखरी ना हो. Being me, being this body, being this role, I'm accepting and acknowledging that I will fall, I will fail. Again and again and again and again. That is the nature of this material. But he ended up with saying, but koi haar aakhri na ho. I should never end at a failure. Let me always begin again. So it was a beautiful talk. One of the first few talks I had heard and very strongly resonated. And I'll share that. Yeah. So anything on this or anything else before we end the day? So I'm excited that we'll be, looking at will for the next few weeks maybe, and that's a very good thing to strengthen more and more. Yeah, Captain, any stories, anything on will that you usually, you have some anecdote that helps us see things in a different light?
In fact, when these things are being discussed, the next topic answers some of the doubts what being discussed actually.
I just pull
Uh,
it up.
that is how to will truly.
Hmm.
So I went through that. So there are some answers in that which were being discussed. And I was remembering about the officer-like quality, like in the defense, when we were in the training centers. Before going to the training centers, there is one services selection board. I don't know whether anybody has gone through in our group now. So everybody, whether is a gentleman, a man or woman, they have to go through the SSB, Army, Navy, Air Force before they become officers. So there are 18 officer-like qualities. Even in NCC also these are there. So willpower is indirectly, it is not written as willpower, but indirectly the willpower is the main thing. Because unless you have very strong willpower, we will not be able to do anything in our life. It's a life situation. So that 18 qualities, there are three independent assessors. They assess. One is the interviewing officer, one is the psychological test, and one is the GTO's test. GTO is group testing officers test. So they will give some activity and you have to do in a group. So these are the three individual officers. So three of them in the finally they have to meet. It's a board actually. There will be 15 to 18 members in that. So they have to come to a conclusion that yes, because there are out of these qualities, officer-like qualities, there are some trainable qualities and there are non-trainable qualities. There are some of the qualities which can be trained. So the training schedule has been made as per that. So, like I just read out those qualities, like in NCC: effective intelligence, reasoning ability, organizing ability, power of expression, social adaptability, cooperation, sense of responsibility, initiative, self-confidence, speed of decision, ability to influence the group, liveliness, determination, courage, stamina. So, this willpower is in so many factors. Out of these factors which I read, willpower is the main thing that yes, I will be able to do it. So that it can be developed. So what problem we are facing in our day-to-day life, I should be criticizing myself. I must be knowing. I must grade myself that what is the progress, whether my willpower from the strong, it has to be stronger of the strongest. So likewise, I have to develop myself, and I have to measure, and I have to evaluate. And when you write the report of an officer, annual confidential report, in that it has been shown actually. So like once you become senior officers, we have to write the report of the junior officer. So I have to calculate, I have to answer in all these points actually. I have to write a history, then I have to mathematically you have to mark and all this and all this. So that will promote him in so. So this willpower, this is one of the first thing where we have to develop ourselves, and anybody and everybody of us, anyone, I think we'll be able to do it. The first of all, the mentality should be that yes, I'll do it. The moment I say I will do it, we say in English grammar, I shall do it and I will do it. So the I shall do it means I may not be doing also. There may be some problem may come and all this. Whereas I will do it if I say, if we used to answer to our senior officers, if something has been asked, you say, I will do it. So there is, you will die, but you will do it actually. Means, for the cause. So that is so serious. So will is not very, we should not take it very lightly. The will, every one of us are given by God, by His Almighty, and it is there hidden with us. So now I must find out for me what will be the method to strengthen it further. That is only required. So these are the thoughts which are coming to my mind when we were discussing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Captain. Dr. Basu, one of the founder members of Namaha, he is a very famous psychiatrist. he has such long workshops, and a lot of times when I have attended his workshops, like days and days and days, the conclusion that I feel I get is like all he's saying is align your personal will to the divine will. Align your personal will to the divine will. Because you, being you, don't know what is good for you. But when you're able to align it with the divine will, then the journey starts, then things start happening through you. So I think like I was saying, I'm excited that we'll be reading will more intimately, that it's something that would really help all of us if we develop it and align it again, with the greater will. Because there are obviously small willings, right? And that Sri Aurobindo's aphorisms, right? That when we move beyond willings, then we shall have true power. Effort is the helper, effort is the bar. So there are small wills which they don't amount to much, and I keep faltering, going here and there. And there is that will of God that is the all powerful, and that would take me towards where I need to be. Yeah. So we'll end the session here. Strengthening the will. I'll share the video and another reading I thought was good, or we can take it up next time. I'll see. So thank you for joining in and staying till the end, aspiring and praying sincerely that I can develop and strengthen my will and align it with the higher will, so that what my role was, what my duty was to myself this time when I took this birth, may I be able to fulfill that for myself and everyone, and aspiring this for everybody, for every being, that may they have the strength, the will to fulfill, to achieve what they have come to fulfill or achieve in this world. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.